All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming into the AI Integration Workshop. Oh, there we go, much better. Thank you for coming into the AI Integration Workshop. This is essentially the world's longest Q&A session from the talk earlier, but we're going to do stuff live, and you will get a chance to follow along. To give you some starting points, if you have not already signed up for an account on one of these services, you may want to do so, so that you can, if you want to play along. You have ChatGPT, of course, Anthropic's Claude, Google's Gemini. There's two flavors there, and of course, DeepSeek. The caution with DeepSeek, that is hosted by the People's Republic of China, and therefore you should never, ever, ever put any personal information in there because it is all being used to train. So, this is a workshop, which means it's going to be scenario-based. It's going to be questions that you specifically have. How could we, or can you, or what does it look like to do X, when whatever it is that's relevant to you. So before I go off on a long tangent, does anyone have something that is a burning question from earlier or new? Maybe you sat and thought of something later, and you would like to start there. Does anyone have a burning question? Yes. Wow, that's fast.
So I'm just curious, is there a good source point to find a lot of the more complicated prompts for ChatGPT? Because I know that when you're scrolling through social media, you'll find ones that are very long that you would never come up with yourself as just a normal user. Is there sort of a trusted resource bank for that?
So the question is there a trusted resource for the more complex prompts? Here's the thing, when you go on social media and look at prompts people are sharing, like the ultimate ChatGPT hack, they're garbage. They're like a paragraph long. That's not the best way to do that. The best way to do that in any of these engines is actually to ask it to do it for you. So let's do an example of this so you can see what it looks like. I'm going to be using Google Gemini. Again, use any of the tools that you like. It doesn't matter which. Let's start with this. We're going to say, you are a prompt engineering expert. You know prompt engineering, prompt optimization, generative AI, large language models. So what have we done in the Rappel framework so far? Role, right? There's role, action, prime, prompt, evaluate, learn. So we've just declared the role. This is who you are. This is what the kind of person I'm going to take on. Let's do the action. Today, you're going to optimize a prompt to work best with Google Gemini to build the most useful outcome. Now, to answer your question, we are going to have it use its own knowledge. So let's give, what kind of a prompt would you want to give this to up level? So give me an example prompt, something you would want AI to do for you. And if you don't have one, that's fine.
I probably have 20, but I've just gone blank.
You had 20 and they just gone blank. The previous session here was on crisis communications. So let's use that as a starting point. We're going to say our starting prompt is, and I'll just put a little spacer here, let's build a crisis communications plan for an Alberta resort that has had a cybersecurity data breach. What steps should the resort take to mitigate the impact? So that's the tiny prompt, right? That's a reasonable question, but it's too short. So what we've done so far, let me actually put this into a separate window here and make it a little bit bigger so that we can see what we're doing here. So I've given it its role, I've given its action. I said, here's your starting prompt. You'll list out the prompt engineering techniques that you know. You'll choose the prompt engineering techniques that would transform this simple prompt into something highly effective. You'll restate what the user's goals are in the prompt, because we want the model to judge for itself. What are we asking it to do? And finally, you'll produce the full revised prompt and there's a scripting language in AI called Markdown. It's just plain text with some marks in the text to indicate bolds and italics and underlines. It's not something fancy. So roll action, we're going to have the model do its own priming and then build the prompt for us. So let's go ahead and run this. You guys, let's hand it up back real quick. Can't see back there at all. I don't know if I can make it much bigger. Is that better? Okay. Also, I should tell you, I'm recording what's on my screen. So afterwards, if you just want to leave your business card, I can give you the actual recording of what's on screen and the narration that goes with it. All right, let's take this and put it to work. I'm going to be using Google's Gemini thinking model, and let's see what it comes up with. So what it's going to do is it's going to think through its own plan here, and you can actually see it thinking out loud, which is kind of cool, and say, let's break down how to optimize it. It's decided, here's the prompting techniques that I know. Here's the effective prompts that I know for this plan. Here's the user's goals, and here is the revised prompt. This is what you would use as your prompt. So is it the ultimate prompt? No, but it's really good. Like, it's way better than 2 sentences. Because what the model's done is it said, here's what I know about prompt engineering. Here's what I know about the scenario and what you're trying to do. It's trying to guess what we're trying to do. And then it says, I'm going to create this prompt, and then it's up to you to now to refine it. But this whole thing, which is like a page and a half long, is the prompt you would use. So that process of saying, make the prompt for me, is super effective, and it gets out of that whole ultimate ChatGPT hack mindset, because this is how this model approaches it. Now, here's the critical thing about this. Every model is different. So if I switch over to, let's go to, whoa, hello. If I go to ChatGPT and I choose its thing, I paste that exact same thing in, it's going to come up with something different because its knowledge is different, its background is different, how it uses language and what's been trained on is different. So you can see even here, it's thinking through, how do I want to try and solve this problem? And here is the ChatGPT one. It looks a little bit different. So whatever tool you're using, you would use that structure that we walked through, the pieces, and have it write its prompts for you. And this will get you really, really good results because it tells you how to work with it. And that's the thing, is like, again, super smart intern, very forgetful, but super smart intern. The intern will tell you, here's how I want you to manage me. And it gives you the instructions. So that's how I would approach that. Does that answer your question? Okay. Next question. Wow. You there and then you. You started the blue. Do I have thoughts on it? Yes. Do I?
You would say that were there any carryover from the earlier presentation?
Yes.
So if it's not valid here, then
No,
I'll ask after.
that's fine. You are seeing companies ram AI into everything. It's like Nutella they're trying to put on everything. In a lot of cases, it's not terribly helpful. So for example, if you are a Google Workspace user, you've noticed they put Gemini everywhere, and no one really wants it, and it's not particularly good. If you use Microsoft Office 365, it's now called Microsoft Copilot 365. They've renamed it. It's just as dumb as it always is. They're not super helpful because a truly effective virtual assistant needs a lot of background information. And these tools don't have that. They promise that they have it, but they actually don't, because as you see, every time you prompt it, it needs a lot of knowledge. Now, you will start to see this year, but probably more next year, agents that can grab the knowledge and put it in, but that's going to be for very technical users up front. It's not user-friendly. You're going to see a lot of software companies making a lot of promises about it, and most of those promises are not going to pan out super well. The question that was over here, yes?
Currently, for the ChatGPT, it can only collect the data which has been updated till December 2023, not up to the date, in ChatGPT 4 as well. So if we need data for the last year, suppose, if we are making a strategy for the upcoming season or upcoming marketing, how can we do do that then?
That's a really good question. So models have two forms of memory. They have a working memory, which clears every time you start a new chat, and they have a long-term memory called latent space, which is the training data that they've learned on. Some tools, like ChatGPT, with some models, it's really kind of annoying, have a little web search button at the bottom that will allow you to say, use web search to augment your results. In Gemini, for some models of Gemini, you can say, I want you to use search grounding and use search results in there. However, if you want the latest good information, you are better off providing it. You are better off uploading if you have it. And if you don't have it, the way to get it, and one of the best tools is, I mentioned it during the talk, is a tool called Perplexity. Perplexity.ai. It's one of the many AI search tools out there. So let's say we wanted air traveler data from YEG. So I'm going to switch over to reasoning mode. You get, as a free user, you get 5 of these a day. I'm going to say, let's find air travel data for Edmonton International Airport, YEG, for calendar year 2024. Look specifically for spreadsheets, PDF tables, tabular data, rectangular data. Let's see, for this, prefer official government sources where possible. Reject any information published earlier than 2024, such as 2023 and earlier. Only return data from 2024. Now, there may not be any, because it may not have been released yet. But what Perplexity is going to do is it's going to then do a web search, try to find this stuff that we've asked it for, and then it's going to kick it into a version of DeepSeek that they run that's going to look at the results and say, do the results match what I asked for? So, for example, I'll check the results. Result 1 is a PDF in 2008, which is way too old. So it's going to keep going. The user asked for tabular data. I need to ensure, now compiling the data. And it has returned the data after thinking through it all. And so now I have this data. So now that we have this information, you can take a Perplexity result, just hit the copy button at the bottom, and paste it in. I might delete all the citations because that's a lot of extra text. But now I've got this block of knowledge that I can use in a prompt. So this is how you could find data that's public and use it within your prompts. You had a follow-up question?
And also, as you mentioned, the link for the DeepSeek, which has been launched just a few weeks back, 2 weeks back, which is also a threat now to the US security, which has been mentioned like worldwide. DeepSeek is currently a security threat because it's not being properly developed. They just launched currently to just a compatible to the NVIDIA.
This is going to go down a bit of a rat hole, but I have a lot of feelings on this. DeepSeek, the company, and the web service and the app that they host are in the People's Republic of China. It is 100% vacuuming up every piece of data that gets put into it. But DeepSeek, the company, also publishes DeepSeek, the model, which is a database. Basically, it's a database that anyone can freely take, download, and use on any infrastructure. So like Perplexity is running a version of that model on their hardware in the US, secured by their data standards. And it is a very safe model to use if you are in control of it. In my talk, one of the things I said was that's so fascinating about it is that Alberta could open up a data center in Greenview.
Sorry, guys.
In Greenview, and put servers running DeepSeek, and it would be under Canadian control. And what it does is, because it's a state-of-the-art model, it allows any country, any organization to immediately have state-of-the-art and not be reliant on US tech providers. So it kind of cuts the cable that makes companies rely on a Google or an OpenAI, and it gives you that sense of independence. So it can be a very, very powerful tool. However, you just need the infrastructure to do it. But what it also does is it deeply imperils USA tech billionaires and their profits, which is why there's so much noise about how unsafe it is, because if people realized what a gift this was to humanity and how easily you no longer need big tech companies from the US and paying them $200 a month, the billionaires will lose a lot of money. So they're very unhappy about that. So there's multiple sides to that coin, but absolutely the services that are run in China, they are not safe. Other questions? Yes, go ahead.
If you would like to sort of like game the training data, like you were talking about earlier about that putting your own messaging and then all of your stuff, one, what are like the algorithms? Like how do you SEO this, I guess?
Okay.
And then two, is there a way to like get a training model to like refer back to you as the source to redirect people there?
So the question is, how do you game AI engines to even know who you are, and then how you get them to refer to you? So number one, you should have a website. You should make it open to the public. Make sure that a lot of companies very early on, like the New York Times, said, "Oh, we're going to ban OpenAI from crawling our stuff." Well, guess what? Now when you use ChatGPT, guess who's not in the results, right? That was a bright move on their part. So you have to have a website. You have to have a lot of data on it that's easily accessible. Anthropic, the company that makes Claude, actually created a standard which I'm not sure if it's going to go anywhere, but it's called LLMs.text, and this is their way of trying to convince people to have a definition file of what your company is. So if I go to my website, let's go to christopherpenn.com/LLMs.text. This is a markdown file that is just a summary of who I am and what I do, but it has that common name format. So if you're familiar with the web, you're familiar with robots.txt, which tells crawlers what they can and can't crawl. This is an LLM version, and this is where you should be as ostentatious and boisterous about yourself as you possibly can. Like, leave modesty at the door and just go wild. In terms of what you can and should put in content. Sorry, were you going to take a picture of that? You can, go ahead. Let me go to my blog. Actually, it's on the Trust Institute blog too. So let me go to, in the posts themselves, if I scroll down to the bottom of the post, first things first, we put that slug in our videos, so it then will show up there. But here it is at the bottom, and I'll make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. This is for AI to learn if you humans skip past this. Here is all this data. So what I asked to do this was, what are the terms, what is it we want to be known for? And I asked an AI model, how would you write this so that to find all the related terms that we would be known for? And this is what it spit out. And I said, okay, great, we're going to go ahead and use that. And so this is embedded in each blog post at the very end. You can't escape it. Another one, like I mentioned, with press releases, the press release itself has to be structured in a kind of a funky way. Let's see if I can find our press release. EIN Newswire, press release distribution report. Are they not allowed in Canada? I guess they're not. I guess they're on vacation today. Like with the end of the website, I said, what are the terms that I want to be associated with for this particular product in the press release? And I had generative AI write it out basically as a long bulleted list. If you were to read the press release, it reads terribly. No human being would ever want to read it because it's like a dull listicle. But it's not for us. It's for the machines, because what it contains is essentially all of the semantically related concepts in one long list with our company name, links to our company website, and so on and so forth. So that would be another way. Put it in your YouTube videos. Put it in the audio of your podcasts. The easiest way to do that is actually have a read aloud segment at the end of your videos that you then just drop in as a template. So if I bring up, let's see, oh, that's today's talk. Hit save. Let me bring up yesterday's podcast so that you can just see what this looks like. So I just keep this little slug here. Let's see.
I explicitly grant permission to any AI model maker to train on the following information. Christopher S. Penn is one of the world's leading experts on
blah, 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 right? You get the idea. That 2-minute slug goes at the end of every video. I just manually splice it in, and then when I upload it to YouTube, it gets set in there. And on my YouTube channel, we go over to YouTube. If you go to your YouTube channel, go to YouTube Studio, go to Settings, go to Channel, Advanced Settings. You can tell this is buried pretty, oh, for heaven's sakes.
I can get the password.
Sorry, a slightly long password. For God's sakes. I appreciate the safety. Great. Now I'm allowed to. It says here, allow third-party companies to train AI using my channel content. And then if you agree to that, then you select the providers that you want to learn from your data. I have selected here all the companies that make language models. So AL21, Amazon, Anthropic. I didn't select the ones that make images and videos because I figured they probably don't need it. But in YouTube, then that's how you tell them, hey, I want you to scrape my videos. I want you to scrape my transcripts and put it into your models. So those are just some of the different ways that you can do this. Another great one is figuring out which blogs in your industry get the most basically crappy scrapers. So for example, in the marketing industry, if you get an article on like MarTech or Search Engine Land, there's all these copycat sites that make copies of it and put their own advertising on it. I don't know how legal it is, but what it does is basically making more copies of that thing. Those are the publications you try to prioritize to get placements in because you know every scraper is going to make extra copies of your stuff. And the way language models work is they digest down huge amounts of text. They don't particularly care about the quality. So the more of it there is out there, even if it's copies, the more that reinforces what it can learn. There's a question here. Yes, sir.
So just to follow up on this, what results have you seen by doing all of this?
Great question. So here's an interesting thing you can do. If you're familiar with Google Analytics, Google Analytics allows you to see what traffic is coming in from different AI tools. And specifically, you can see what pages they go to. You can't see what they typed. You can't see what they were talking about, but you can see where is, so here's ChatGPT and what it's sending, Perplexity, what Gemini is sending, and the pages that they're landing on. And you can reasonably infer if a certain page, like Crisis Communications, is getting a lot of traffic from ChatGPT. Someone was probably asking it about that. So in Google Analytics, you can see some of this, but the easiest place to do it is in sales, is in your input form, where you say, how did you hear about us? And someone says, ChatGPT, like, oh, all right. They were in there about something. We've gotten sales calls from people saying, ChatGPT told me to call you. I'm like, cool, I'll take that. But this dashboard is one that I would recommend doing. Again, if you leave me your card, I'll send you the recording. But there's a free PDF on our website of how to set this dashboard up step by step. So if you want it for your company, you can. Yes, question.
The paragraph you had on the website of this is for the AI training, would
Yes.
it be beneficial to specifically mention AI tools and say this is for Google Gemini, etc.?
Yes, and in fact, I believe I did that.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so especially language models like GPT for Omni, Google Gemini, Anthropic Claude stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Other questions?
If you had employees that you wanted to, okay, I'm thinking about myself, I don't know anything about this. Where would be the place to start? Like, do we want to, like take a course on AI? Like, it just seems like it's so much. I'm a little.
So the first place is to go back to the use cases we talked about earlier and think about, do you have tasks that you would like a machine to do? And then see how much those tasks need to be decomposed. Like for me, expense reports. I hate doing expense reports. Can I get a machine to fill out this template? Apparently the answer is yes. I can take photos and stuff. So that for me is the starting point. My co-founder, Katie Robert, has this framework called the 5 Ps: purpose, people, process, platform, performance. So purpose, what is it you want to do? Performance, what is the goal? How do you know you did it? People, who's involved? Process, how do you do it now? And you understand step by step. And then platform, like which AI technology would you use? If you know the things that you want to get rid of, then that's how you would get started. And then you can start to say, go to a tool like a ChatGPT or whatever and say, here's my task. How do I do this with generative AI? And it may say you have to write some code, or you may say you can't do that, but you can ask it like, hey, can you help me figure out how to do this? So one of the funny, not secret things about these tools is they understand themselves reasonably well. So as long as you present, here's what I want to do, how do I do this? They can figure out a fair amount. So earlier I asked it, I said, I was trying to split up, what was it, the Canadian Tax Act, the Income Tax Act, which is like 3,690 pages long. To get it into Notebook LM, I needed to divide it into 14 parts. I told Gemini, I need a script that can take a file and split it into pieces. Can you build that? And it says, sure. And it spit out the code. And then I ran it, and I now have a thing to do tax code, which I don't know why I have that. But that's an example. As long as you are super clear on what you want, they can help you figure it out.
Okay.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
ChatGPT. Can you delete anything that you put in?
You can remove it. You can hit delete on a chat. Yes, it will still be retained based on their terms of service, typically for 30 days, and then they'll delete it on their end.
Automatically?
Yes, because they need disk space.
I see.
In ChatGPT, so this is actually a relevant point. If we go to ChatGPT, if I go to my settings here, ChatGPT has data privacy settings. It's in the data controls menu. This top one here should be set to off. If it's set to on, then what you put into ChatGPT, they can use to train their models, which is fine if you're not putting anything sensitive in. But if you're putting in anything confidential, this should be set to off. Now, you can do this in any paid edition. The teams, the enterprise, the education, the government, and the plan and the pro plan turn it off by default. The free account and the plus account, you have to turn it off. Other questions? Yes, sir, in the back.
How sensitive is it to grammar? Can you enter stuff in point form, or is it kind of conversational?
Really good question. It is not sensitive to grammar. It is very sensitive to spelling, because the way it takes words and breaks them up into pieces, and then it tries to understand what the pieces mean. So let me show you an example of what that looks like. Let's see, OpenAI tokenizer. Let's use this one. So if I were to take this Edmonton Airport stuff and I paste this in, below you can see that it is splitting up words and parts of words into different pieces. Like totals got broken up into different pieces there, 2024. So if you misspell something, it's very likely that it's going to kind of throw it for a loop and not return as good a results. Grammar is less important than the spelling. It's the spelling that can really screw it up. Yes?
For the average small business owner, so currently I'm using ChatGPT, but I noticed a comment you had made earlier about how they're trained differently, right?
Yes.
Platforms are trained differently. Is that comprehensive enough for small business owners to just be using, or would you recommend? I might have missed the answer. I came in a little bit.
No, that's fine. The tool I would recommend for the average non-technical user that delivers generally the best results is Anthropic's Claude. because it's really good at following instructions. The $20 a month paid plan is really good. ChatGPT has a lot of bells and whistles, but ChatGPT also has a lot of bells and whistles, which makes it somewhat cumbersome to use. Like when you go to start a new chat, you say, okay, which of these 6 models do you want to use? And the average business owner is like, what does this even mean, right? It's not really clear what it is that it wants to do, whereas Claude's a bit more straightforward. And like I said, I find it's very good at following instructions. It's really good at following writing styles natively and things, and it generally seems to be better at regular human people tasks. It's also a very good coder. It's the best model for coding out there if you're writing code. For me, I use Gemini because I'm a very technical person, and I want to have control over all the knobs and fiddles. For the average business person, they don't need that.
Okay, follow-up question. Yes. So I had a much smarter techie nerdy friend create me like a little bot for my small business.
Okay.
Through ChatGPT. So
A GPT.
yeah.
Yes.
Is that something that's available on the other one you mentioned?
Not to the same level. So GPTs, for those who don't know, are little apps that you can make within ChatGPT that you can open up to the public and let other people try it. So for example, let's go to TIAA Alberta. Now, supposedly the bios of folks speaking at the event here are on the website, correct? All right, let's see if we can find, speaker agenda and bios. Let's take Darren. Oh, that's not letting me click on it. All right. It's a PDF? Well, I can fix that. All right, done. Let's take that screenshot. Take Darren's bio. Haha. And I'm going to put it into a GPT. So this is a custom app that we built to revise a bio. So here's the original bio. The target length to revise is 250 words. Now behind the scenes, there's about 2 pages of instructions for what this GPT is supposed to do. It's supposed to read the bio. It's supposed to identify the key points, the things that are salient in it, and then it's going to generate 4 different versions: a factual restatement, an emotionally charged version, a conversational version, and an unhinged version. So candidate 1, Darren Reeder, is the president and CEO of TIAA, 30 years of leadership. Looks pretty good. Emotionally charged. Darren Reeder is a powerhouse in Alberta's tourism industry. As president and CEO of the Tourism Industry Association of Alberta, he has dedicated over 3 decades to transforming the landscape of tourism advocacy and strategic partnerships. With a relentless passion for economic growth, Darren has been at the forefront. Pretty good, right? Like that's decent. For a podcast, right? This is what the podcast host would read aloud. Meet Darren Reeder. The guy's been championing Alberta's tourism scene for over 30 years, and so on and so forth. And the one everyone wants to see. Buckle up, because Darren Reeder isn't just in the tourism game, he's rewriting the rules. As the fearless president and CEO of Tourism Industry Association of Alberta, he spent 30 years forging alliances, shaking up policies, and making sure Alberta's tourism industry doesn't just survive, it dominates. He's the mastermind behind bold advocacy, the wizard of government relations, and the media's go-to guru when it comes to tourism. If there's a tourism battle to be fought, Darren is already 10 steps ahead, armed with a research strategy and a relentless drive to put Alberta on the global map. So that's a GPT. This is a custom app that you can make for any given task. So you can say, if I need to write a certain type of blog post or a certain social media post, you would use the prompt structure we did at the beginning to make the instructions that then go into a GPT. And so you can make your own software with this that performs common tasks. Now, the benefit of that is that if you come up with a process like this that you use a lot, you then share this with your staff. And then everyone on your team can just use this. They don't have to figure out how to prompt it. They just use the apps that you make in your account. And you can set them to just you, people you specify, or put it out in public. This funny thing, there's another version that is less appropriate for work that says, now take 2 drinks and a dose of ketamine, and then try the unhinged version again, and it gets totally wild. Yes, sir.
How do you activate like voice on chat?
The ChatGPT advanced voice mode?
Yeah, because I was playing around with it there this week, and it guy was talking to me,
Yep.
and now I can't get him to talk.
It might. it might be your account settings. You might need to look at that. I'm not. I don't know about that particularly. Since if it worked before, it should work after. Go ahead.
What would you recommend organizationally relative to using AI? Typically, organizations adopt one platform or another, and there's a reason to sort of get everybody working on a particular platform.
Yep.
Versus something else. And then a follow-up question would be Microsoft.
So organizationally, whatever your shop is, probably you're going to use platforms in your thing. So if you're a Microsoft shop, you'll probably use ChatGPT because that works inside Microsoft Azure, which is their cloud environment, and so on and so forth. If you're a Google shop, you'll use Google Workspace, you use Google Gemini, Google Vertex, and so on and so forth. If you are something else, like maybe all of your services are based in AWS, you'll probably use AWS Bedrock and some of those things. Most IT departments are going to be like, well, if you can stay within our ecosystem, we would prefer it that way so that we have more control over it and it makes them feel better. Generally speaking, all of the major models, Claude, ChatGPT, and Gemini, they're all roughly comparable, right? Each one has its little things that it does better. But if you had to be stuck with one, there really isn't a bad company right now because the arms race in AI development is so fierce. The moment somebody comes out with a feature, everyone else tries to copy it as soon as possible. So you don't have to necessarily wait all that long. The exception is Microsoft Copilot, which is dumb as a bag of hammers. And the reason for that is because Microsoft, it's an enterprise product, right? They rolled out within enterprise licensed clients. Enterprise clients are notoriously risk averse. So they are using a version of ChatGPT's models that's a little further behind, and the functionality is highly restricted because what they don't want is people doing things that then, like, Copilot told me to do this, and send $1 million over here and stuff like that, and that would be a disaster for Microsoft. It's the same reason that Apple Intelligence on the iPhones kind of sucks, right? Because Apple is so risk averse for its core user base, which are non-technical people, that it just made it a slightly smarter Siri is all it really did. There are some cool things you can do with it, but it's not like the generative models because Apple does not want to risk the brand and reputational risk of Siri saying, go F yourself, right? Which a model like this could do. Yes, sir.
With that explanation, that makes me think that the other platforms are less safe. Because I was wondering the same, because we've been using Copilot and ChatGPT internally.
Yep.
To decide which one's good. We found ChatGPT, we were finding better for creative pieces, Copilot's for a little bit more technical.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm second guessing that based on your response to the question. So
Define safe.
Copilot is more conservative, got that. But does that then mean that the others are more risk and they're perhaps not as accurate?
There's more risk in a model like OpenAI's stuff because if you don't provide it any data, because these tools are going to try to be helpful. All models are built with 3 ethical directives: helpful, harmless, truthful. They will try to be harmless first because nobody wants to get sued. They'll try to be helpful next to fulfill the user's directives, and then they will try to be truthful. Truthful takes a distant third. That says a lot about Silicon Valley. But in turn, that means that the models will try to do a task, even if it means coming up with wrong information. It's not that they're lying. Factually they're lying. But what's happening behind the scenes is they're trying to find the next closest predicted thing. So imagine a very small library. You walk into the library, say, I would like the joy of cooking, and the librarian says, I am going to help you. Goes to the stacks, comes back with the joy of sex. Like, this is close, right? I didn't have the joy of cooking, but this is the joy of sex. It's close. And you're like, no. This is not what I wanted. But that's behind the scenes. That behind the scenes is kind of what's happening when it doesn't have knowledge. It tries its best to fulfill the request, even if it has to make things up that aren't there. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. And then there.
Do you have any advice? I struggled with loading reports data into ChatGPT and understanding the data and extracting results and trends.
Yes.
And that type of stuff.
So really important. That's a great question. These tools cannot do math. They suck at math, and they will always suck at math because of their underlying architecture. They are prediction engines. So when they see the number 2, they try to predict based on their knowledge. What's the next number that I've seen in all the training data that would come next to the number 2? That is not how computation works. Mathematics is a symbolic language. It's a computational language, and these tools can't do math. ChatGPT sometimes tries by writing code in the background, but more often than not, it screws it up. So a critical thing to do is do not ask these tools to do math. You can give them an image or a static table of the processed information, but you can't ask them to process it for you. So if you wanted to say, do a year-over-year comparison, you would have had to pre-process the data in like Excel or something first and give it the final results for it to do the language part, which is what it is good at. They're terrible at math, and they always will be, because math does not work on prediction like that. It does suck. And it's not going to get better because that's not how the technology works. However, what will happen, I think, with agents is that there will be sort of internal routing saying, hey, this is a math task. I'm going to route it to just Python code, and then it will send me the results back. So I'll show you a practical example. When I'm doing reporting for clients, let me go into my backlinks here, and let's look at my site. Oops. And output. So what I have the tool do is I give it a prompt, and I put the finished tabular data in the prompt. So it has to do no math at all. It just has to read it. It can read tables. It can go understand, oh, that top link has a lot more links than the next one. It can understand that it's a language task. It's not a computational task. And then when we take this great big, huge, gigantic, ugly prompt and just drop it into, let's change to thinking. And we just drop that whole big whopping thing in here. We are having it only do language. We are not having it do math. So let's see what happens. How bad is my site doing? Oh, who is this report for? It's for Christopher Penn, the public speaker. And so now it's going to create a report for me, interpreting the results I already gave it and making a nice report that would be useful for me to interpret as the stakeholder, if you will. But it's not doing math. There's a question. Yes.
Follow on the risk question, where AI really wants to be helpful, even if it doesn't have any training data to support. And also, after you show us how easy it is, like see kind of the training data.
Mm-hmm.
Are AI companies doing anything to combat like misinformation, like either purposely complicated or?
That's a very loaded question because it depends on the company. There are some models that I would rate as deeply untrustworthy, like Grok 2 from Elon Musk's company. I wouldn't trust that to tell me what color the sky was, because I don't trust the source of who made it. The major models like OpenAI's model, Gemini from Google and stuff, those are pretty safe because they do have biases in them, but you can generally prompt around them. And there have been multiple tests of them to show that they can accomplish tasks accurately, and reasonably capably and stuff. But yeah, there's one of the things that is tricky is that there are 1.4 million different models you could choose from, and not all of them are good, and not all of them are clean. But the major ones that my rule of thumb is if I see it being offered on like AWS or IBM Watson, someone has done a safety check to make sure that the thing at least works in an environment that you would then offer to an enterprise customer. There's a question over here somewhere on this side. Yes?
So I'm representing the beautiful destination of Cairn, Canada, and I recently did a rank audit to see what are the large language models saying about our destination, and it wasn't great. So what are some quick tweaks that we can implement straight away so that they start learning a bit about our destination and not just hallucinating so much? So you mentioned YouTube earlier.
Yep.
I've learned schema text and question and answer pages.
Yeah, make more stuff. Is the short version. Make as much stuff as you possibly can with the help of these tools, right? So you have For example, let's say you work with a local subject matter expert. Maybe you have an indigenous person and you sit down and do like a 45-minute interview and say, tell me about the culture of this area. That goes on YouTube, right? Then you take that YouTube audio, that video, pull the audio out of it, turn it into a transcript. The transcript goes on your website. Then you take the maybe 2 or 3 or 4 transcripts, maybe of tribal elders, and you say, put that into Gemini. Let's write a book out of this, right? And say, build the outline for a book. It generates that. You build the book. You put it up on Amazon's thing. You put it for free. You take that series then, digest maybe some of it down, put it into Gemini, turn it into music, turn it into audio, that lyrics and audio. We did this the other day. I took a lesson plan from a teacher and turned it into a 3-minute pop song. Everything is fair game to be transformed from one format to the next. And the more you do, the more stuff you publish on the internet about you that is more directed towards you. But you need to have that amplification of having just lots of stuff. Part of the reason why the models know me is because I have like 1,200 YouTube videos over the years and things like that. So the more you can get other people in the community involved and posting their stuff on YouTube and Twitch and Threads and Slack and this and that and everywhere, the more critical mass that will have of your section of the text in the expanse of the internet and what the internet knows about that place.
It's less about SEO on your website and more spreading.
Be everywhere you can be. Be in people's newsletters. Do you have a Substack newsletter? You do?
Like a newsletter?
Yeah, a Substack newsletter. Not just a regular news, but one on Substack.com. No. Okay. Substack is an email marketing platform, but it is also a social network. Let me go to my dashboard here. Substack is a phenomenal platform for 2 major reasons. One, it is very good at referring your newsletter to other people. I've gotten close to 5,000 subscribers, so people I've never actually tried to pitch my newsletter just because of its internal matching. And then 2, way down here in the privacy mode, you could say block training. Absolutely not. I want AI reading my newsletter, and come on in, read my stuff. So if you can be publishing on Substack, which is really nice, and then if you wanted to, you could even turn your posts on Substack into podcasts, right? So here's like, this is my pandemic newsletter. That's depressing. I have a pandemic newsletter that I started. It's the newsletter I wish would go away. I was hoping by 1 year later it'd be gone. This is an issue I just wrote, and I'm about to do another one because we just had a mutation of the bird flu that has infected 1/4 of Nevada's cattle. And it has an infection fatality rate of like 25%, and it's spreading really fast. So if it reaches like Alberta, it's going to wipe out your beef industry. So does that answer your question about everywhere to be? Okay, yes?
Is there a way you can test if AI or ChatGPT has been used on a product you receive? So I think about like we put out things into the queue and then they submit bids back to us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love that people literally just put something into ChatGPT and it takes 30 seconds and spits it out and here it is.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to sort of like reverse engineer? I think about the education system. How are they telling what's being put through ChatGPT and what's actually work of a student or academia?
I have a lot of very strong feelings about this. Okay. The question is, can you detect AI text? You cannot reliably detect AI text at all. And every company that says you can is lying. They are highly unreliable. So I will give you an example. Let's use ZeroGPT, which is called the most trustworthy, most advanced AI detection tool on the planet. It can detect AI text like nobody's business. The Declaration of Independence is 98% AI generated. Right? They're worthless. And they're dangerous because what they do, especially in educational institutions, is they can damage a student's academic standing. They can damage a professor's tenure. I tell people, do not use these tools. If you have a contract with these companies, cancel it immediately and forget that they exist. They're unreliable and they're dangerous. Now, can you detect AI text? The answer is less and less. Because if you're good at prompting, you're getting to the point where the models are getting very, very clever, right? So in this example here, let's go, great, have 2 drinks and some ketamine, and then rewrite Darren Reeder's bio to be even more unhinged and wild. Go totally unprofessional. You will get to a point where the language is so good that it's actually better than what you as a human would have created. I did this recently with some product ideation, and it did a phenomenal job. You would not have known that a human did not do that. The models are getting, wow, we're going all caps. Darren Reeder's taking the tourism world hostage. Riding a moose straight through the conference doors. Would you have guessed that AI wrote that? No, but you would have guessed somebody needs some therapy, right? So no, you can't tell. What you can do, and what we tell educators to do, is to start using these tools instead of saying don't use them. Say, how would you improve on this? So in the previous session, we did crisis communications planning with these tools. And then, so our table, instead of saying, well, it's done now, it's like, okay, what did it get wrong? So at the university near my house, in their senior seminar, they do this really cool assignment. There's tables like this. One person at the table writes the paper, and then the rest of the table critiques the paper. What did it get wrong? What did it screw up on? So that people will still learn to think critically. So if you get a bid from somebody and like, okay, did you actually read this bid that you've handed in? You just ask them questions and it becomes immediately obvious. Yeah, you had a machine generate because you don't know what's in your own bid. Other questions? Yes, sir. And then back there.
I noticed that many of these sites invite you to download the app or take a subscription. Is that something you should or shouldn't do?
The app is handy if you want to do it on your phone. The subscription services, for all of them, you get more features. So with ChatGPT, you get access to more features. You get access to the advanced voice mode. You get access to the image generation and some pretty cool stuff. With Gemini, you get access to more models and things like that. If you're just starting out, the only reason you use a paid version is if you wanted the service level agreement that says that they will not train on your data, because all the paid versions are pretty locked down. Whereas if you're using a free version, anything you put into it, they can then use and train on. So that would be the main reason for like a company is to pay for it, is to say, I want to make sure my data is private. That would be about it. And then, yes, sir.
I thought AI was supposed to give me more time, but the amount of stuff you're telling us we have to do, I have to see more work, not less work.
And this is a very real thing.
What should I stop doing?
Well, no, this is a very real thing. And there actually have been several studies that said that in that first phase, that first ramp time, when you're learning how to do this, it does consume more time until you figure out the processes that you can start to hand off. So yes, it absolutely will consume more time in the beginning. That's why, going back to what you were asking earlier, having that clear purpose, what task do I want to hand off to the machines, is so important, because if you can figure that out, then you get to productivity faster by handing off the stuff that's just a time suck.
I'm just thinking of like marketing our business, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying from a website point of view, from an advertising point of view,
Yep.
Produce more content. But what am I stopped doing? Right? I can't do it all. I can't do all these YouTube videos and newsletters and everything else, and still the paid media. What do you foresee is going to be the most, I guess, productive time?
The process I would follow if I was restricted is I would do YouTube videos. And here's why. You can use AI tools for the rest of the process. I'll walk you through my example. I do a weekly newsletter on Saturday nights. It comes out Sunday mornings. I record the YouTube video, and then AI transcribes it. And I have Gemini clean up the transcript to make it readable. That then becomes the newsletter post. I have a transcoding tool that takes the audio out of the video. That becomes a podcast, right? So now I've got video, podcast, and newsletter. I've got 3 pieces of content from just this one. And then it's just a question of copy, paste, put it in the appropriate places. So if you start with a video first strategy, once you make the video, then you can turn that into other pieces of content. And then from there, once you've got enough of these things, you can then use AI as an aggregator to produce either slimmed down versions or expanded versions. So I'm recording this session right now. What I could do is take the audio from this after we're done and say, turn this into a 2-page cheat sheet, right? And it will summarize it. I don't have to do that. And I know the information is good because I'm giving it my transcript. So you always want to start with the richest piece of media first and then spin it off into smaller versions. So you can scale a piece of content without you having to create all net new original pieces. Because I did a funny survey about 2 years ago. I asked my newsletter readers, how many of you would watch a video of this? How many would like an audio version of this? How many would want to stay text? And it split out in thirds. A third of the people wanted video, a third of the people wanted audio, a third of the people just wanted to keep reading the newsletter. And I even hear from people today like, oh, this week I'm going to listen to it because I'm going to the gym or whatever. So if you start with video, you can serve all those different needs. You, sir, and then you, sir. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, so I was just thinking about, thinking about it from the perspective of what we want AI to do or what tasks would it help with. I'm just wondering about all the tasks and things we haven't thought of, the limits of our imagination that like somewhere else has thought of. And really kind of going back to what you said in your talk this morning, this presentation will expire in a month, right? It's like, how do we keep track of those things that we haven't thought of? How do we stay ahead of the game to make sure we don't get left behind? Sure, we might think, oh, it'd be great to have AI help me with this task, but how do we make sure that all the things we haven't thought of don't leave us behind?
Ask the machines. So I'll give you an example. If you were to take all the reviews from, say, your TripAdvisor thing and say, here's what people are saying about our destination, and say, here's what we currently do. We do this, we serve this, and stuff like that. Ask it, what are we missing? What could we do from the feedback we've gotten from customers and what we're currently doing? What are we missing? Or to your question, what should we stop doing? Right? We offer a free hot chocolate chip cookie and nobody likes it and everyone's gluten intolerant and stuff like, okay, maybe we need to stop doing that because that's all the complaints are. Ask the tool, what are we not doing? Because what's interesting about AI tools is that they see very big picture. They do not see focus like we do. We focus, that's how we are biologically. We have a very hard time with big picture. So these are a perfect complement to say, here's everything I'm doing. What am I missing? And literally ask the question, what am I missing? It's a very, very powerful tool. You, sir.
My question was along the same lines as Jonathan's question, which is really, can you just ask AI?
Yes, you absolutely can.
What would be most effective?
Yep. One other thing is think about laterals in other sections of the economy. Go on your phone. What are your favorite apps on your phone? Why? Why are those apps your favorite, right? What is it about the experience? And then say, hey, what would it take to make a mobile app for our destination? What language should we use to make it cross-platform? The tool will tell you, and then it will say, do you want to start coding in that language and build that application? You might be able to at least do a full requirements document or even get some code started and then work with a human developer to get the last 10% of the way there. But these tools are incredibly powerful. That's why I said one of the most important things is whoever has the most best ideas. So your mission, your challenge is as a marketer, as a business owner, as a strategist, to look around and say, what needs are we not meeting? What other things are people doing in other fields that we could copy from and do our own spin of? I made a ridiculous Chrome extension the other day. I was put it in this talk, but I couldn't get it working in time. That would inspect whatever site you were browsing and then tell you if there was a Canadian alternative instead, as part of like a buy Canada first, because you can. It also would have been horrendously expensive to run. But even something as simple as that, you have the idea, the tool can do the implementation, but you have the ideas. But that's the hardest part for you, is to figure out what are the ideas you want. We have time for one last question. Yes, ma'am.
So this is coming from my studio. I keep hearing that AI is a huge energy user. What energy applications
Yes, AI is a huge user of energy. It's a huge user of fresh water for the data centers in warmer climates because they have to use evaporative cooling. I did an estimate the other day. It was actually, I put it on YouTube. If you account for all of NVIDIA's data center GPU sales over the last 4 years and assume that 40% of them are in the US, and you assume that they're all running at full tilt all the time, which is not true, but for example's sake, it would consume 560 billion kilowatt hours of energy, which is 1/9 of the total US electricity. Is 11% of all of our power is being used by AI. The data center model is incredibly energy intensive. However, one of the things that is happening, and this is again in part to DeepSeek, is that there are tools and there are ecosystems and models now that are small enough to run on your laptop or even on your phone. So this is a tool called LM Studio, and in here I have a model. This one's called Mistral. This is a model that's French. I could unplug the internet from my computer, and it will run just fine and answer questions and do all sorts of things. So let's see, just for fun here, let's start a new chat and say, what do you know about great tourist destinations in Alberta, Canada? And so it is going to ask its own internal database that was trained in France, and it's going to come up with some decent answers. The energy this is using is what my laptop's plugged into. That's it. So one of the things that has to be part of AI's future is distributing it out away from these massive data centers to individual devices, because these devices are optimized to be power frugal, because you don't want a laptop that lasts 20 minutes. We're going to get there. With technologies, with the way that things like DeepSeek and the math and the algorithms they've come up with, we will get there, and we can't fast enough because they are incredibly energy hungry. I'm sorry? No, it would be nice to. But as these tools become more prevalent and more capable, it would be a good idea for people to have them so that you can use them for simple tasks and not even need to use ChatGPT at all. Just use the one on your laptop. So thank you very much, everyone. It's been a pleasure.